A new dusk came as Reyth rested sleeplessly, fighting the swirls end over end, admiring the deep blue sky as it grew blue and black. Night fell, and EU's wail sang across the clear sky. With these new eyes, the sky twinkled with telescopic reds, greens, and blues. EU's wail's long effervescence swayed like the forked tail of a succubi, shimmering with flecks of refractive ice falling above the clouds. They'd travel through the night and all next day, so Boda and a handful of her fighters had left to form a rearguard, as the howls of the Dark One's fellhounds melted through the trees. Gregor had left with Schneider and Ty to find a quicker way. O slept while Mira and Comet learned to control brick and mortar together, laughing at each other's bad jokes. Song-like, the joy of the young couple, distantly ahead, trickled over the caravan and the awake. The moment a memento of a time not far gone but burned to ash. A flicker of something new. Sophie, who it pained Reyth to admit looked more a daughter of the breath than herself, disheveled as she was, reined the horses, brick and mortar. "And what's this one?" Reyth asked, holding a photo at random into the watcher's view. She recognized herself in the tangle of the Agla, Schneider beside her as he spoke ill of Gregor. There then, too, she looked vermin, twigs in her hair and sorrow in her eyes. Billowing like a cloak of shadow behind her, the blotched shapes of a painted insect. The crowned one flourished from her as if she were its chrysalis. "That's you and Mr. Schneider," Sophie whispered, paying courtesy to the resting. "And this?" The next photo looked like a distant light in a black lake. "Oh, well, it's silly," Sophie said, squeezing her legs together. "I didn't all ask that. I asked what? I took this picture through a telescope. It's like a binocular. It lets you look far as into the sky, even." "At the stars?" "Yes, and more. Look, between those elven bodies are traceable lines called constellations. This is the constellation Blue-Eyed Mograine." Lit by sudden excitement, Reyth caught her own surprise in her expanded horizon as she watched the woman snatch the photo from her to show off another not so different from the first. "And the denouement's girdle," and she showed another. "An Anson swirl. They lace the heavens, and the brightest stars are not stars really, but other worlds like here." Are they real?" Reyth wondered. She lifted her head but caught no glimpses. "As real as you or I." Sophie giggled, squirming in her seat, antsy but less bashful. Blisters on her hands, she'd kicked off her boots and limply held the reins, not one who was used to hard work. "Orga is among the closest bodies to Thess. That's us. And the most luminous speck in her night. Only the 2 moons and the comet are closer. Orga, unlike Thess, which is more like a big ball, bears some semblance to an egg, orbiting Thess in an elongated ellipse, which is also like an egg." Sophie drew the shapes in the air as she went. "Orga veers past us every dozen years, and plunges so close to the star, and at such extremes of periapsis and apoapsis, that volumes of her crust hurl through the void. Indeed, meteoric masses of such matter are coveted by covens and the cherish alike, as they are the shed skin of a great scaled one." Reyth stared but did not respond. Sophie's whispered wiles rose from murmurs to excited chatter, like the singing of a cricket. "Tonight, Ilarul's harmony illuminates our sight, and we can see such clear starlight unlike back home. May I?" Sophie angled for the owl's head, her careless thumbs brushed glass eyes. To her surprise, Reyth shuddered like they were her own. Her gaze lifted to the young sky, like when she found Evren after the breath fell. Reyth had not lingered in the dark lake since her brother had wrapped his frail arms around her, holding tight her neck like the spider's legs. Then he'd clutched for hope from a fading life. Sophie pointed to the brightest light. "If we had a telescope, you could see catastrophes, giant worms born from the cauldron of a calamity, tearing through matter and rending the clouds of sulfur that fill Orga's sky." She rifled through her photographs, but Reyth had stopped looking, captivated by the young woman's knowledge and love for the heavens. Though she was slender and weak, there was beauty in all things created by the mother, predator or prey. Sophie chattered on. The longer she spoke, the more nervous she became, covering her mouth in a gesture of shyness. What did she have to hide? I took this picture, too. The firefly lights around the equator are creatures, like the same who cut scars across Thessa's crust. I swear. Well, I don't really... Gregor would agree with me that they're actual embers of Sigisvald's furnace, primordial predators of light and fury. Their bodies glow like the sun, with burnished wings that shimmer with waves of heat and gleam like flames. Even as specks, I can tell they are arrogant and proud. Really? I sure wouldn't want to get gobbled up by one. Reyth had seized upon the distraction to slide up behind Sophie, grab her with both arms, and bite her ear. Sophie would have melted through the gaps in the wood if Reyth didn't slide around to kiss her stiff. When the saliva separated and the shock faded, Sophie sat frozen as several photos took to the wind. She tucked away loose hair and laughed. Gosh golly, Reyth reached around to hug her tight, to feel the nodules of taut ribs under a loose blouse. You should talk less, and eat more, Reyth growled into her ear. Sophie's gasp, gentle like Sangar's own. Reyth brushed her cheek, hooked her lip, and felt her teeth. Sophie cowered into Reyth's strength when her finger found fangs. Her ears had felt small and dainty against the tongue, but she did have Scylla's teeth, like a wolf's, for puncturing throats and tasting blood. When neither fussed. Maybe. Reyth wondered if she was to grow stronger, fight, and struggle. Could she with some brittle bone to squeeze and with friends worth protecting? Wouldn't that be nice? Before that, before she lost what she'd just caught, she went exploring from the young woman's navel, busted a stubborn button that would not give, and through the trousers she went, down tight curled ringlets of hair, to part squished thighs, and split Sophie open with a moan into the night. Crack! Went the walnut. Burr! Went the woodpecker. Squeak! Went the mouse. Goddess! Went the trees.